Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, or whatever time it is that you are joining us. And welcome to worship at Palomar Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are so glad you're here. This morning, we light a candle in acknowledgement that this is the land of the Luiseño Nation and the Kumeyaay Nation, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the first peoples who have protected it throughout generations. I invite you to take a moment where you're at and acknowledge the land upon which you are located. Perhaps if you are out of our area, find out sometime who the first peoples were of that land. Again, we're really just so happy to have you today. Worship on Sundays is one of the ways that we stay connected even while we shelter in place. I invite you to visit our website at vistauu.org to find out how you can stay connected during the week, sign up to receive our emails, visit our Facebook page at Palomar Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And this morning, I would like to wish our Muslim friends Ramadan Mubarak, blessings on Ramadan, dear friends. What a beautiful discipline you have of fasting from sunrise to sunset and praying and lifting up community and lifting up the need for justice. Ramadan Mubarak. I know how hard it is for you, my Muslim friends, to stay away at this time. I'm pleased to be joined in the service today by John Rott, who chose the theme for the service and will be giving the reflection. Grateful too to Brenda Balmer, Kelly Grimes, Augustus Moscato, Kathleen Moscato, our tech folks, Emily Barker, Katya Hansen, Michael Muffson, Paul Brady. It takes a team. Liberation is the official theme of the month for April at Palomar Fellowship. And isn't that fitting? Has anyone felt confined lately? I think we could all use a little liberation internally from our current shelter in place lockdown. This theme was actually chosen last year as part of our 3-year cycle of themes. Today, we'll look at liberation from the point of view of Buddhism. To a Buddhist, liberation is synonymous with enlightenment and requires nothing other than arriving here and now, fully in the present. Liberation from suffering was the central theme of the Buddha's life. Can you imagine the possibility of that sort of freedom? Let's explore that today. I invite you to breathe with me and arrive.
Body, speech, and mind held in perfect oneness. I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness, transcending anxiety and sorrow.
We create a sanctuary for those seeking and finding their own answers to questions of faith, This is a sanctuary for voices lifted up for peace. This is a sanctuary for those seeking companionship in our struggles and our journeys. I invite you into worship today with words by Hafiz. We have not come here to take prisoners, but to surrender ever more deeply to freedom and joy. We have not come into this exquisite world to hold ourselves hostage from love. Run, my dear, from anything that may not strengthen your precious budding wings. Run like hell, my dear, from anyone likely to put a sharp knife into the sacred, tender vision of your beautiful heart. We have a duty to befriend those aspects of obedience that stand outside of our house. And shout out to our reason, oh please, come out and play. For we have not come here to take prisoners or to confine our wondrous spirits, but to experience ever more deeply our divine courage, freedom, and light. It is good to be together.
Indeed, it is good to be together this morning. I'm so grateful to have an opportunity with you to worship and to share a beautiful meditation of breathing from Thich Nhat Hanh for our chalice lighting words this morning. Breathing in, I see myself as a flower. I am the freshness of a dewdrop. Breathing out, my eyes have become flowers. Please look at me. These eyes look at you with love. Breathing in, I am a mountain, imperturbable, still, alive, vigorous. Breathing out, I feel solid. The waves of emotion can never carry me away. Breathing in, I am still water. I reflect the sky faithfully. Look, I have the moon within my heart, the refreshing moon of the Bodhisattva. Breathing out, I offer the perfect reflection of my mirror mind. Breathing in, I have become space without boundaries. I have no plans left. I have no luggage. Breathing out, I am the moon that is sailing through the sky of utmost emptiness. I am freedom.
One of the core practices of Buddhism is the wishing of self, others, and the entire world happiness. In our Time for All Ages, enjoy with me this happy song. We wish happiness for ourselves, for others, for the entire world. It repeats a lot, so by the end you can even join in.
May I be well, may I be safe and sound, may I be peaceful, may I be at ease, with love in my heart and all around. May you be happy, may you be well, may you be safe and sound, may you be peaceful, may you be at ease, with love in your heart and all around. Well, you can sing your love, and you can dance to your love, and you can play your love today, my love. And you can laugh your love, and you can cry your love, and you can walk your love heart and all around. Send it to someone else. May you be happy, may you be well, may you be safe and sound. May you be peaceful, may you be at ease, with love in your heart and all around. You can sit with your love, and you can breathe with your love, and you can listen to your love. It's in your heart, my love, and you can share your love, and you can shine your love, and you can be your love, and you can spread your love all around, whole world. Sing it for everybody. May we be happy, may we be well, may we be safe and sound, may we be peaceful, may we be at ease, with love in our hearts and all around. One more time. May we be happy, may we be well, may we be safe and sound, may we be peaceful, may we be at ease, with love in our hearts and all around. Big circles of love. Okay, get ready, we're gonna send it out. Here goes. Some is raining back down. Receive it in your hearts. Give yourself a hug. A really yummy hug and say, I love myself. Okay.
I love the sweetness of those kids. Can you feel the liberation in that simple song? What a beautiful message, and the simple freedom of that expression. I think kids get it right away. I think for us adults, we have a little more work to do. And that work starts with a story. A fed-up man sat under a papaya tree. He had had enough. He was fed up with his privileged life, which had brought him no comfort. Fed up with the unsatisfactory nature of fame, adoration, wealth, and pleasure. After a brief high, it all seemed to stoke the fire of unhappiness. He was fed up with the pervasive suffering and fickle unfairness he saw in this life. And he thought there had to be a better way to live. So he did something pretty radical. He left his family. He left his inheritance. He gave away everything he owned and went into the forest and meditated and studied. He found the best teachers, tried every spirituality available. He got into yoga and performed the most extreme yoga and ascetic practices, and nothing satisfied him. Finally, he'd had enough. A weaker person might have jumped off a bridge, but instead he sat down under a tree with a fierce determination that he would not get up until he'd found the true way, a path beyond the ordinary suffering of this life. And so he sat and he meditated, and he meditated some more. And he kept going. He didn't stop for anything. And finally, a dam broke inside. He let go of the world, let go of his desires, let go of all his identities, let go of his beliefs, let go of expectations, let go of fears, let go of thoughts, let go of anger. He let go of all of it, everything, and rested mindfully in the present moment, letting all that arose in his tortured mind just be, holding it gently, like a mother holding a crying baby. And at the rising of the morning star, the mental prison that he'd been living in shattered, and he was free enlightened, liberated. He saw the interdependent, interconnected nature of all things. He saw that we all are one. His first sermon was to the children from the nearby village, who I can imagine dancing around like the children in the song we just heard. The children gave him the name Buddha, meaning the one who has awoken. And he devoted the rest of his life to sharing his message, this new way of being, this way of freedom. May we too taste some of that liberation.
In these times of uncertainty, it is beautiful to have the thought of liberation and a community where we can connect and deepen our relationship with ourselves and each other. Our covenant provides us with a way of being together, grounded in our values, and it supports us in cultivating trusting relationships as we grow together. We created this beautiful covenant as a process of deepening our commitment to ourselves and one another and this beloved community. I'm going to share our values this morning, and then I'm going to invite you to speak the modified words of our promise to each other. And remember that a covenant, even when it's broken, is meant to be a place where we can return, where we can liberate ourselves from shame and guilt, let it go, and come back truly to a sense of compassion and interconnectedness with all. In mutual love and grace, we journey together, grounded in profound respect for a diversity of beliefs and ideas, sustained by service and shared ministry, enriched through collective spiritual deepening, and a safe environment for all generations to thrive. Together, we are more than we would ever be alone. Therefore, we promise to welcome and include everyone, to listen carefully and speak kindly, to help and share what we have with the community. Thus do we covenant with each other.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
Are you breathing? Did you breathe in peace, breathe out love? Why don't you do that again with me? Breathe in, breathe out. Remembering that the breath connects us to everything that ever was, to this present moment, and to everything that will be. Beloveds, we pause in the midpoint of the service, in the midpoint between the inhale and the exhale, to acknowledge all that we bring with us to this day and in these days. As I invite you into that space of silence and honesty that is known by many names, and invite you to pray with me, I invite you to connect right now with what is on your heart, what it feels like in your body, what joys or sorrows, concerns, loves, lostness, delights, hope that you bring with you today. What I'll invite you to do is I'm doing my prayer and then setting some silence to just breathe and be. I invite you to write into the chat your joy or your sorrow. And just let that be and let them be. They will simply be witnessed by one another, by the spirit of life and love. Pray with me. Spirit of life, spirit of love, you move through us as close as our breath, the precious breath that gives us life, and in these times, the breath. We pause in gratitude for this life. We mourn for those lives that have been lost. We recognize that we bring with us a mix of emotions. And the first step of being free is to acknowledge what is. Welcome everything. This being human is a guest house, as Rumi said. So in this present moment, acknowledge what is with you and know that it is seen and heard and held, and that you are seen and heard and held. We acknowledge the sorrows, losses, celebration of birthdays, love and healing for Dan Straka, who fell yesterday. The joys and the sorrows and the concerns are being witnessed in these moments. Being witnessed, beloved ones, by the love that has coked existence into being and that holds us all. The love that will not let us go, and the love that will not let us off, and the love that will not let us down. Rest for a moment in silence. Breathe in, breathe out. And know, beloved ones, that you are held in love and mystery deeper than you can know.
Good morning. Good morning to all my dear friends in Zoom land. Thank you for your beautiful shares in the chat. And if there are any more joys and sorrows, you can keep putting them in there. It's kind of fun. I'm imagining each of you in your homes and sending you love and peace. I hope our connection is warming your hearts. Thank you to Beth and the Sunday service team for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. They're going out on a little bit of a limb, and hopefully I don't get into too much trouble. Today, we're going to talk for a few minutes about liberation. What is liberation to you? Is it the ability to leave your house, to see your loved ones in person, to hug with abandon, to sing together, to sit way too close to a group of dear friends and talk the night away? COVID-19 has taken away so many things that we hold dear, and also so many lives across the globe. These are tough times we're living in, and the anxiety and the despair feel thick in the atmosphere. Myself, I take solace in the life and words of the Buddha. And I think he would say to us, Not so fast. Isn't our happiness a frame of mind, an attitude, a way of looking at the world? Is it possible that the despair you're feeling is not quite the whole story? Could your mind even be playing tricks on you? I remember when I was in college, I was a pretty arrogant guy. I had it all figured out. I was the smart kid. I went to Princeton, I knew just what I needed to be happy. And it felt so close. If only I had that relationship, those grades, a little more money, everybody liked me, I was going to be happy, and I was sure of it. But in my life, things didn't always quite work out that way. In fact, they usually went a little bit sideways. Even when I got the girl, got the grades, got the attention, then I'd just worry about losing them. And they never seemed to last long anyway. Gradually, I became pretty darn depressed in college. But no worries, I was a smart kid. I had it all figured out. I'd just work harder. And so I did. But no luck. So next plan, study psychology. Maybe if I just could figure people out, then I could get everything I needed to be happy. Yeah, that didn't work either. Needless to say, I became pretty unhappy. It was as if the harder I tried to be happy, the more unhappy I became. So why not try philosophy? The big questions, the ultimate questions, that'll fix me for sure. One day in my senior year, I was in a seminar, and we were talking about existentialism, which was really cool in college, of course, and how everything in life is empty and meaningless. And boy, could I relate. I had a wonderfully complex story, a drama about John, and how I was being victimized by life, and nothing ever worked out. Empty and meaningless? Damn right. It was all empty and meaningless. So I'm sitting in this seminar, and I remember the beautiful voice of a French woman at the front of the room who spoke up and said, "Why should we care? If life is empty and meaningless, then it's empty and meaningless that it's empty and meaningless. What's there to be so wound up about?" And in that instant, I knew she was right. And I can still feel that sensation in my body of those chains of thought shattering. There was this little moment of liberation, of freedom. I had been tormenting myself for absolutely nothing. All of those judgments about how things should be, those were shackles. I had been caught in my own thinking and never even realized it. Some very small part of my personality had shifted, reframed my life situation, and there was that little taste of freedom. A minute before, if you'd asked me who I was, I would have listed a series of roles and responsibilities. I was a student, I was a musician, an artist. I was depressed, unlovable. I was a complete mess. I was fighting to survive in this family, social, political mess of a world that was actually actively seeking to bury me. But in that next moment, I had no idea who I was. All of the concepts I listed before seemed hopelessly inadequate. It was one of those moments where the gears in my mind, in my thinking, just screeched to a halt and locked up, and the steam rose off the top of my head. I was left with this profound emptiness, this space of not knowing, and a new opening to try something different. Have you out there, have you had sudden moments of awakening in your life? when all of a sudden everything shifts and you see the world in a new way? I think awakening is part of our common humanity. That night under the papala tree, the Buddha had the mother of all awakenings. I'm certainly not suggesting that my story is anything like the magnitude of the Buddha's. He reframed not just his identity, but his perception of the world and time and space, the very nature of reality. For me, that awakening was more like the first layer on the outside of an onion. To the Buddha, liberation had nothing to do with the usual freedoms we hold so dear. Not political freedoms like the right to vote, freedom of speech and assembly. Liberation had nothing to do with personal choice, like the freedom to buy something or dress in a particular way or express yourself in a particular way. To him, a person in solitary confinement, a prisoner, could be liberated, or a person with COVID-19, a person at high risk for COVID-19 on total lockdown. The real prison was in our minds. That night under the tree, he woke up to the fact that he had been deceived by his own mind and not even known it. And he would suggest that you and I have been fooled as well. So that's a question for you. Are we trapped in prisons of our own mind? Is it possible that these minds that we're so proud of have deceived us, trapped us in delusions so sneaky and subtle that we don't even realize we're stuck? For the sci-fi folks out there, are we all really like Neo in the Matrix, living in an artificially created world that only exists in our minds? In my experience, the thoughts that trap me are often judgments or worries that I take to be real. A thought like, I'm not good enough. Do I take it to be real, or do I realize the absurdity of the question? Not good enough for whom? Who could possibly judge? By what standard would the enormity of a human being be judgeable? And then as far as worries, how often do the things I worry about actually come true? You know, researchers say less than 10%. And almost all of the worry that we do is completely wasted spinning of the gears. And boy, does the mind love that drama. And the depression and fear and COVID-19 is just supercharging the whole process for some of us. Great new material to keep the wheels of oppression in our minds spinning. You know, joy at this time is a radical act. To be happy. And I think we truly can be happy. When I think of the Buddha and that night under the tree, a little crack of light comes in and I think, hey, wait a minute. Is what I'm thinking really true? What's actually happening? Is it possible, instead of being a pathetic, steaming lump of garbage, this very moment is actually a miracle? This moment right here, in this house, even if I can't go out. Can it be wonderful even over Zoom? I love the song, Everything is Holy Now by Peter Mayer. Katya, who's helping out today, has sung this song for us in Sunday service. One of the verses goes, "Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but to find where there isn't one. Everything is holy. Can we even imagine that? Everything holy, everything miraculous. You and me and our crazy COVID situation. Can we imagine living in a sense of wonder and gratitude, even as our bodies are sheltering in place? Can our human spirit live free and fully expressed in the perfect present moment? Is it possible? In fact, the Buddha would say, it's your birthright. The Buddha had many answers to how we get there, which we explore in our Buddhist meditation group every Saturday at 9 a.m., meeting currently by Zoom if you're interested. I think this all starts with this questioning of your own thoughts, of your own mind, of your own reality. And I believe that you are not your thoughts. You are far more than that. Practices to free our minds start with love, joy, peace, gratitude. What powerful tools they are, like the song with the kids. And of course, the granddaddy of all tools, methods of awakening in this Buddhist sense is mindfulness. Being fully here, fully present in this perfect present moment. So I invite you to challenge your minds. Wherever you find yourself stuck and ruminating, let's break those shackles together, open our hearts and minds, and experience some of that sweet liberation. Do you feel it with me? Let's take a breath together and experience. Let's savor this perfect moment, as perfect as any moment that's ever been. Got to do one more for Beth. Thank you, dear friends. All the best.
Such a beautiful reflection, John. Thank you so much. You know, it reminds me of our ability to liberate ourselves from the sense of being confined in these times and instead choose to connect in expansive and open-hearted ways virtually with our beloved community. I'm so inspired by and grateful for the many offerings that have sprouted up in this time where we're not coming physically together. Those ways each week are Vespers, Sangha, Chai and Chat with Reverend Beth. So many ways to come together and feel that deep sense of interconnection, compassion, love, and foster the deepening of our relationships and joy in this time. As John said, how important that is to refuel us. I have seen so many people give so generously of their time and their talents and their treasures to support the fellowship during these unprecedented times. And I am so grateful that we are a generous congregation and that each quarter we choose a nonprofit that's in alignment with the values and the mission of Palomar Fellowship to share half of our undesignated plate. This quarter, the recipient is URISE, Unitarian Universalists, Refugee and Immigrant Services and Education, serving some of the most vulnerable people during this time of COVID-19. It is a great honor to have Katya lead such a beautiful and heart-centered organization making such a profound difference. Now we know that we're in times where life is uncertain And if you are in a position to give generously, we invite you to do so. But remember, any bit that you donate is you living your values. So it could be $1. And what that means is that you are present and connected and understand that we're all supporting each other. I invite you to donate in multiple ways. You can send checks in. We're still receiving them in the office weekly, so feel free to do that. You can also text your donation. And there's 3 different ways, and it's going to be on the screen in just a moment, but you can text with the number and pledge, which would go towards your pledge. You can text the number and then plate, which would go to You Rise. And then you can text to the number and then community to go to needs that are arising all around that our ministers' discretionary fund can support. So just know we are all in this together. We support one another in this process. And this is a time I always think of giving and receiving. So I pause in this moment of gratitude, and I invite you to enjoy some music and to donate what you can to support this beloved community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John, for your message. Thank you, Augustus, for the music. I see that there's a couple of questions about text to give in the chat. Yes, you can absolutely do it after the service. Just copy down the information. It's also in the order of service that I gave you. I sent out a few times this week, so you can go in there and find out how to do text to give. How's that? You don't have to do it right at this moment. Does that sound good? Yes, John, again, thank you for that wonderful message. And as we think about liberation, I would like to invite you to join me this afternoon in a call to worship, a prayer gathering that has been organized by the American Friends Service Committee, calling for the physical liberation and release of those in prison and those in jail and those in detention centers who are being unnecessarily exposed to COVID-19. So I'll put that link in the chat, and you can go on to the AFSC website and register and join us and bring physical liberation that so many need, as well as thinking about the liberation that we seek from those thoughts and those patterns that no longer serve us. So this is just a reminder that even as we end our time together, we are still looking at ways to stay connected. And I'll invite you to join me in our chalice extinguishing words. Although we extinguish this flame, we carry in our hearts the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment until we are together again.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul.
Ah, beloved ones, I don't know if you were swaying and singing as I saw our panelists do. Thank you, Augustus, and thank you, Kathleen, for the beautiful ending. And let's bring that forth as we leave. Invite you to go in peace, be makers of peace. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And don't go too far, because we are going to, in a moment, end the webinar, and we will have you come back and join us for our virtual coffee hour, and we'll have a little bit of time for breakout rooms. So you know, the link to the Zoom meeting is in the chat. It was sent out in the email on Friday, Saturday, and this morning. It's also on our private Facebook page if you have access to that. So we would invite you to take a break. Yeah, you dial by your location. Thank you, Emily. You take a little bit of a break, get some coffee, get a little bite to eat, and we will gather in 10 minutes. It's 10:51 right now, so we'll gather just a little bit after 11 o'clock. And just dial in that number, or use the link, and we'll come back together again.